Let me tell you how I get other people to pay for me to live in this house.
The concept is called house hacking.
House hacking means you are using your property to generate the income.
But first, a disclaimer. You need to look up the legality of this on your own property and where you're looking to buy specifically. It differs across countries, provinces, suburbs, even certain areas in suburbs or estates. So the legality of it, the zoning of it, the use of your own property, the building plans involved, all of that is different. So in some places you are allowed to rent out a garden flat, you're allowed to have a garden flat, you're allowed to rent out a studio apartment, you're allowed to rent out an office at your property, you're allowed to rent out and use staff quarters or even charge a fee to stay there. So there's a bunch of ways you can do this, but check the legality and take your own responsibility for that, because it all is different.
Let's get started on the first concept. If someone was looking to do some house hacking for themselves, what would be the first thing to consider?
Well, I think the first is, do you have a suitable property? So you're probably looking to buy a property that has this capability, or you're probably converting a certain part of your property into something else. So I would say you would want to start with making sure you have the right property, and the short answer is you need space. So you typically, when we talk about house hacking, we're not talking about probably a method of it, but we're not referring to putting up Wendy houses in your backyard and renting them out for 1,500 Rand each. We typically do a bit of a higher end house hack where we typically have nice little apartments for young working people, and it's quite expensive. It's more expensive than the cheapest options available. So it's not just somebody's renting a room from us. We typically rent out nice one-bedroom apartments, right?
Yeah, and the big thing about this concept is you're allowing other people on your yard.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that firstly you want that, and secondly that these people are appropriate to be on your yard.
So you're saying based on the type of place you have, that draws that type of tenant. So when you have very cheap accommodation available, you probably get very cheap tenants or people looking for very cheap accommodation. Whereas if you have something nicer, a bit more higher end, you get that type of tenant.
If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Fair.
So that is just a bit of the concept. And secondly, like what you said earlier, with it's not Wendy houses. We typically take like either a storage at the back of a house or a garage, or sometimes even the main bedroom of a house, because that is like a little flat on its own already.
Like a little bachelor's, right?
Yes, with a bathroom and bigger living areas.
So ideally, you want to have a house that is a normal house. That's typically maybe a big 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom house, or a house with outbuildings. So it's got staff quarters, maybe attached to a garage. Maybe it's already got a flat that's a flat on plan, or a granny flat or a second dwelling on plan. And alternatively, there's a lot of outbuildings. Some people convert entertainment areas into these spaces. So there's a lot of variability on that, but that is determined by what the opportunity is in the specific property you're looking to buy. So let's get back to, you said you have other people paying for you to stay here, right?
Yes. On this property, I converted a staff quarters and one existing flat into 2 flats, which I then rent out for 7.5 each.
So you have 2 flats at 7,500 Rand, paying you 15,000 Rand a month.
Yes, and that is a really good sum when you take into consideration the fact that I paid 1.4 million for the property.
Yeah, so this is almost paying your main bond, right?
Yes, I did renovations to the property, but I would have in any case had to do that even if I was renting it out or not. So it covers a real big part of my bond, mostly. And then I think there's a couple of main things to look at when considering this, because if you don't have enough space on the entrance of your property, this won't be a long-term solution, because sooner or later you'll get tired of people parking you in, or parking or triggering the alarm or things like that.
So you want to separate them, right?
Yes.
So at my house, I've got the same situation, and I've got smaller walls between me and my neighbors than I have between me and my tenants. I have 2 gates, separate entrances, kind of a corner property, so similar to what you have here as well. Little bit of a corner, 2 entrances, and a wall between me and them. So my dog don't go out when they leave the gate open. So it's literally having my tenants as neighbors, right?
Yeah, it's the same. If anyone visits me,
Yeah.
they are not aware that I have these flats.
Yes.
And that is exactly what you want, because it will not be a long-term solution if you're in each other's hair the whole time.
Then you've got a flatmate,
yes.
which we're not talking about. It's also a form of house hacking, but this is not what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not running a commune here.
Yeah, and you and your wife staying in a commune. So let's get back to the details. You paid 1.4 million rand odd. You get 7.5 and 7.5, which equates to 15,000 rand. So you're paying the entirety of your bond, and then maybe helping you pay on staff that clean the house, or Wi-Fi, or some of the other services, right?
Yeah.
And again, we both do a high-end service offering, so we include a bunch of services. So you also include cleaning, you include Wi-Fi and electricity.
Yes.
So it's an all-in, but essentially these guys are helping you pay those costs for yourself.
Yeah, of course.
You
And
would have had Wi-Fi on your own.
I would have had cleaning on my own. I would have had solar on my own.
So somebody is now paying.
Someone
with
is
you
helping
for
me
that.
also live a luxurious life, and that is a good way to split those costs, because that's a couple of ways. Either you can make more money, or you can lower your expenses, and this is a good way of lowering your expenses but still having the luxurious elements to living.
I've had a lot of people tell me, I don't want to give up my garage, or I don't want to have people on my yard, or I don't want to have to do the maintenance, or I don't want to have to do the management of these tenancies.
Good.
And
that's great.
Yes.
Then this is not the solution for you. Then you need to find another way to make 15,000.
And that's the question. That's where I'm getting to. If you have another way, how much time would you say are you spending on this 2 flats of yours on a monthly basis? It's difficult to say.
I would say probably a day every 3 months.
Yep. So 3 hours a month. If you have another way of making 15,000 rand for 3 hours, rather do that.
Yes, do that. Go for that.
But if not, this is the easiest way to make extra money, right?
Yeah.
And you have an investment in there. You've spent some money on making those flats. So you've spent what, 150, 200,000 rand on those flats?
Yes.
Yeah. So say you spend 200,000 rand, but again, to get a return of 15,000 rand from 200,000 rand is not possible in any other way.
It's an amazing return. It's an amazing sum.
Yeah. So the reality is, the comparative is, so I've said to people, yes, I do park my car outside, or I park it under a carport in exchange for that monthly return.
Yes.
So from my garage, I get about 7,000 rand a month. I can wash my car quite a lot with 7,000 rand.
Or you can build a carport,
Yeah.
even give it sides. You can make a carport pretty secure for not a lot of money.
And technically speaking, you can even build a garage.
Yes.
So the reality is, outbuildings equals rentable space, equals a return in a way which it's not disturbing, because you have the walls, and that pays way more than any form of investment of time or money that you can make in a different place.
Yes. And I think the main thing is we have used this house hack to be able to live in a nice property at a young age
For very low cost.
for really low cost, where a lot of our friends and people that we know aren't able to do this, because you are signing up to pay a monthly bond and there's no getting out of it.
And you still want something a little bit nice, so now you're
Yes.
paying it, you're living in a townhouse. That is nice, and secure, but you are paying that entire bond
Yeah.
or rental payment yourself.
Yeah, let's say maybe it's not the ideal solution for a 45-year-old living with kids, living in the house, to convert it into this. Maybe it's not the option. But for someone paying 10,000 Rand for a flat that they don't own to stay there monthly, you add a little bit of work and a little bit of savvy, and then you can own a property which is being paid for by your tenants and live a nice life with a big yard, with a nice house.
I think something else to say, so you're talking about younger people, but also older people who have a big house and now the kids have gone to university or they're out of the house, and now you have this massive place. You don't necessarily want to stay in staff quarters anymore, or you don't need any of that. It's maybe to convert a part of that into a flat list. Again, this is our advice. This is how we do it.
Yeah, and this is just options.
Yeah, use it, don't use it.
This is a way to get into real estate.
Yes, because essentially when we started, we stayed in the flat and rented out the house, right?
Yes.
So essentially that's the start, and then the second step is have a 3-bedroom house and 2 flats.
Yeah, and the other thing is this investment is growing year on year.
Yeah, so it's becoming worth more over time.
Yes, and the longer you wait, the more it grows.
Yeah.
Because if you need to sell in a 3 to 5 year gap, you might still have a loss if the market is fluctuating.
But you haven't had the loss if you didn't pay for the bond.
Yes, of course, and even so, if you look at 10 years, the upside might be really big.
Yes.
You might even double on a property,
like
and
it
we've
would
done
have
that before.
been where you've bought for 2 million.
Yes.
You know, whereas you're not buying a little 3-bedroom house for 800,000.
Yes.
And that, folks, is how you house hack.
Drop us a comment if you have any questions on the specifics of this, and we hope that was really helpful for you.
Cheers.
Cheers.